Michael Chandler has done a slew of interviews leading to his fight at UFC 309 against Charles Oliveira. Yes, Charles Oliveira, not Conor McGregor. He's fighting Charles Oliveira at 309, in case I didn't tell you. And in these interviews that we're going to take a look at today, one, he went on Ariel Helwani's show where he called Charles Oliveira a quitter and then said he didn't call him a quitter. He looked absolutely pathetic making excuses for Conor McGregor. He alluded to maybe, this is a big maybe, you guys, it's up for interpretation. It seemed like he was alluding to that he cheated on his wife during training camp, which is completely and utterly wild. And also says that he was writing in a journal about Conor McGregor. I mean, you literally can't make this stuff up. We're going to look at a bunch of clips. And then also, there's an interview with Kevin Ioli where Kevin Ioli just cuts the bullshit and asks the questions that the people want to hear. And the answers were rather delusional. Now, we're going to discuss that. That's the last thing we're going to look at in this video. But we're also going to discuss how Michael Chandler can save his career, because I do believe he's kind of on the path. You know, he's kind of on the path to getting it, but man, is he still hung up. He still thinks he's fighting Conor McGregor, guys. He is still insisting that he's fighting Conor McGregor. So he's almost there. You just got to forget about Conor and stop sucking him off 24/7. But let's jump right into it. Let's jump right into the Ariel Helwani interview. I will link this full interview down in the description for you to check out, as well as the Kevin Ioli interview we're going to take a look at later. Let's start off with this, because this kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Because what I hate is when people allude to something and basically imply something, you know, whether it's implicitly or explicitly, and then they say, oh, well, I'm not calling him that. And that's exactly what he does here. In the lead up to the first fight against Charles Oliveira, he called Charles Oliveira a quitter. And now here he's basically calling him a quitter again because Ariel asked him specifically about it. Listen to this.
16th, 2024 is my time.
There used to be this knock on him, and you referenced it in the build-up to that fight and even in the aftermath that he was a quitter. Mm-hmm. And obviously I think he's proven that to be kind of 100% nonsense. Do you think there's any element of that left in him?
Why is Ariel doing this? Why is he making the money sign? Is there any of that left in him? And by the way, Ariel says it's nonsense. Chandler says 100%. But then listen to what he says here.
I do.
You do?
I do. I'm not calling him a quitter.
Okay.
But I do know I didn't put myself in a position to fight him for long enough, to put pressure on him for long enough, to instill second guessing and doubts into his mind and his spirit for long enough for that exit sign to be found. This time, I think we will.
You can just write that off as confidence, but you know how stupid that is? When I heard that, I said, I got to include this in the video. He literally almost finished Charles Oliveira basically twice in the first round. If Charles Oliveira was going to quit, he would have quit. So for Chandler to sit here and call another man a quitter, when this guy quit his job for 2 years, praying that an alcoholic drug addict who hadn't won a fight in 8 years, or only won one fight in 8 years against a washed-up Cowboy Cerrone, was going to fight him, he quit his job. He didn't show up for work for 2 years. And he's calling Charles Oliveira a quitter. I just rubbed me the wrong way. I figured it would rub some of you guys the wrong way as well. And just throughout this interview, you know, I could literally just jump around to random spots and not even have any timestamps. And I'm telling you right now, this is a broken man. I don't know if a win on Saturday changes it. I'm telling you right now. And I've read Michael Chandler like a book over the last 2 years. And basically everything that I've said about him in the past that he was denying, he's basically confirmed. You know, I've already broken that down. This man is mentally broken. Conor really broke this man bad. You'll see. You'll see later in the video. Let's jump ahead. Let's jump ahead where he talks about his patient. I mean, this is the ultimate cope, guys. This is the ultimate cope for his bad decision making. You know, basically he made horrible decisions. And now instead of taking actual accountability, even though he says he takes accountability, he just tries to say, oh, this was the best thing and patience is a virtue and people were overly critical to me and maybe I wanted to sit out. Well, my problem with Chandler is not that he sat out, but it's that he sat out while selling wolf tickets to the fans. And you can say, well, he didn't know it wasn't going to happen, Joey. How could he have possibly known? It was so obvious. Everyone was saying it. Not everyone, but I was saying it for a long time, and then everyone finally started to agree with me. But he knew more from behind the scenes. He knew this shit was up in the air 24/7, and here he is guaranteeing dates to fans. September 2023, December 2023, UFC 300, UFC 303. He was teasing the Sphere. He was teasing December this year. He was teasing this. He was teasing that. And here he is saying, oh, well, maybe I wanted to sit out, guys. Maybe I wanted to sit out.
Of course, but overall, they say patience is a virtue. Yet when you show extreme patience, you also get criticized for that. So at some point, you get criticized no matter what. And yeah, maybe a part of me wanted to sit out. Maybe a part of me needed to sit out.
So it went from begging for Conor to show him attention. I got one dude on my mind. Get your candy ass back in the octagon so I can eat it. Going on WWE Raw, talking on every single online platform he could possibly talk about, saying, yeah, me and Conor are definitely fighting 100%. I'm leaving my family shortly. I left my family in January for a mythical training camp at a mythical weight against a mythical fighter. And now it's like, oh, well, I wanted to sit out. Well, then you lied to the fans. You and Dana White were complicit in lying to the fans to sell them wolf tickets, is what you did. It's one or the other. Either you were bamboozled or you're a liar. It's one or the other. And I know people maybe say, oh, Joey, you're kicking a man while he's down. No, he's got to fight. He's finally moved on. I haven't made that many videos about Chandler. I really haven't made anything, I don't think, since the fight got canceled, essentially reaction to the fight getting canceled. And maybe like one video after that, but I haven't really talked about this in a while. This hopefully is the end of the saga here. I don't think it will be, but maybe it will be. Now he's like, oh, I wanted to sit out. Well, that's not what you were telling all your fans. It's just, it's ridiculous, It's absolutely ridiculous. Next clip we're going to jump into is him talking about the Conor fight. Listen to this. It's just the ultimate cope again. You'll hear it for yourself. It's just annoying to even hear it. I listened to this full interview. It's an hour and 3 minutes and 48 seconds. I listened to it in its entirety because sometimes there's context you might miss. For me, just as, watch a small part and then use it, maybe. But it's like I needed to listen to the full context. I watched this full interview. Boy, was it infuriating.
It's funny how 15 years later, the sport of mixed martial arts, Brian Smithed me. I didn't choose to sit out.
Right.
I didn't choose for Conor to pull out of the fight. I didn't choose for us to do the Ultimate Fighter in February and March and then promote the show. And then we were supposed to fight like later that year, September.
So now it's not his fault. And now he didn't choose to sit out. This man just talks in circles. I feel like he would have followed Jim Jones to Jonestown. He would have followed him there. This guy, is he not talking to us like some type of con man selling us a pyramid scheme? He's been listening to too many motivational speakers.
For October, and then it get pushed till the following June, and then he breaks a pinky toe. I didn't choose that. The sport chose that for me. The sport thrust that upon me with a bunch of outside circumstances. And yes, I was pissed off many, many times, and I had my moments, but ultimately, it was the best thing that could have happened to me because the man who sits here today has never been more proud of what I do, more grateful for what I do, and more dangerous.
Is that not the ultimate cope? I don't want to laugh at the guy because, okay, if it's, if he has to convince himself, look, this was the best thing that ever happened to me. I wanted Conor the entire time. I was begging for Conor the entire time. I was telling fans the Conor fight was going to happen over and over and over again, even though the signs were there that it wasn't going to happen. And now it's like, yeah, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. And it wasn't my fault at all. It's just, there's so many times where he's like speaking out of both sides of his mouth. It's absolutely insane. Next clip we're going to take a look at. Here, he's asked specifically by Ariel, and I think I even left a question here. If the fight never happens, will you be mad? He insists the fight's still going to happen, basically. He says, I believe I will still fight Conor McGregor, and the road of Conor McGregor's return goes through Nashville, Tennessee. He wants Conor bad, boys. He wants him bad. Listen to this.
Animosity, I guess, is the word. And I'm just wondering, if the fight never happens, will that stance change?
No, not at all. Conor's doing his thing. I'm doing my thing. And there's 600 other people on the roster. He and she shall just be doing their own thing. And that is...
This really pisses me off because I understand it's partially Chandler's fault and it is Chandler's fault. But like the fact that he's not even saying like, look, Conor's a piece of shit. He strung me along. I was hoping the fight was going to happen. I was trying to have a positive attitude. And this dude's just just completely unserious, out drinking and partying 24/7. And he ran from me and said, he's like, Conor's doing his own. It just makes it more annoying. Like, at least call Conor out for his bullshit. You're more likely to get the fight in that case. But instead, he's making excuses for him. Oh, yeah, everyone's doing their own thing here. And it goes on.
is it. I think if anything, as we just covered the last 20 minutes or so, I think it was a great process for me. It was beneficial. So many great things came from it. Yeah, I think Chandler versus McGregor needs to happen at some point, and I do believe it will happen at some point.
I found the one person on planet Earth that thinks Chandler versus McGregor is going to happen. Does anybody believe a word that he's saying at this point? I know I'm beating a dead horse here because I've been saying this for 2 years. But does anybody believe a word he's saying? Yeah, I think it was great. The process, everything was wonderful. Like he's acting as if he's happy that this happened to him. He's acting as if this was great. I wanted to sit out, but I didn't want to sit out, and it wasn't my fault, and I didn't know this was going to happen or that was going to happen, and it was What happened to being a man of your word? You told Conor you were going to fight him. You told the fans you were going to fight him. And now you're fighting Charles Oliveira instead. Maybe it does still happen. I'm going to talk about his kind of future roadmap and how he can actually turn this into a positive legitimately, but we'll get to that in a second. Let's listen to a little bit more of this.
And we need, if he comes back, his road back to the UFC goes through one man. It goes through Nashville, Tennessee. And we have to finish Tough 31.
Who gives a rat's ass about Tough 31? And how many times has he said this road goes through Nashville, Tennessee? I'm not as angry as I once was because when he was lying to fans, it was driving me nuts. So I actually feel bad for Chandler at this point. I don't want to dare feel bad for him, though. I wouldn't want to dare disrespect him by feeling sorry for him. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do. But it's just a broken man here. Just a broken man.
So I'll take care of business on Saturday night and see what is next. But ultimately, too, it's about extreme accountability as well. I could have, at any given time, the first moment that Hunter called me and said, hey, we thought it was going to be, call it September, July, August, whatever it was going to be. The first moment he called me and said, hey, we're going to push it to this. It's not happening until at least
Yeah, he could have. Who would have possibly told him that? I don't know. I mean, at one point, all the fans were on board with it, but then everyone started to tell him, look, dude, move on, especially after 303. But yeah, I respect him for taking accountability here. Like, what I take from this clip here, after all the kind of, it's still going to happen, and, it's the road comes through Nashville, Tennessee, and I believe it will happen. And I was a dumbass. I sat out. It was my choice. Nobody, I think he already said it, but let me make sure. He said nobody told me to wait.
Here, or at least here, or at least here. Any one of those moments, I could have said, hey, Hunter, I'm done, man. I'm not waiting any longer. It's on me. I am in control of my own career. They didn't tell me to wait.
There it is. They didn't tell me to wait. Meanwhile, he was telling the fans, I've gotten my assurances. It's going to happen. Meanwhile, I'm playing you clips of Dana White saying, I don't advise anyone to sit out. I don't advise anyone to sit out and wait, especially for Conor McGregor. I mean, we've broken this down ad nauseum. So let's carry on because I don't want to make this video too long. Next clip. You guys are going to have to give me your interpretation of this because I don't know if he's saying, did he cheat on his wife? I don't want to make that allegation. That's just the first thing that popped in my mind. Apparently in this moment after a loss to Charles Oliveira, he's asked about this moment. He apologized to his wife. And he says it's something that she didn't know. And it was, it was something to do with his training camp, but it was outside of fighting and very, very bizarre. And then Ariel tries to follow up on it. He's like, I can't talk about it. One day. Is his testimonial going to be like he cheated on his wife during a training camp and they fought through it? I don't know. I don't know what he's saying here, but I thought this was interesting. Again, I sit through these full interviews. So when I get a little tidbit like this, I'm like, you know what? Let me highlight this because I don't know what this even means.
Beautiful outfit. It's sparkly, goldish silver, and she looks like a freaking angel. And there was 20,000 people in the arena, and all I saw was her. And I remember just apologizing to her in that moment for reasons that she did not know. I was going through something that she did not know about because I needed to protect her from it.
What is this about? Now, I'm just being nosy. I need to know what this is about. I need more info on this. I mean, it goes on a little bit more.
Because we were away from each other, and she knew, it's just funny. She knew it was a different, I'm sorry. Because I knew I let myself down. I let her down. And sometimes in life, you have to go through these battles. You have to go through these things that are so so painful.
I have no idea what that's about. To me, when I heard that, it sounded like he's saying he cheated on his wife during the training camp for Charles Oliveira the first time around. That's what it seemed like to me. And Ariel tries to follow up. He's like, no, I'm not talking about it. Maybe one day.
To become the man that you need to become, to be galvanized by the most ridiculously painful fires that you would never wish upon your worst enemy. And yeah, that was the last fight, and that was the last 30 seconds I was in the octagon, so now we get to right that wrong and get back in the win column on Saturday night.
Could I ask what you're referring to, what you were apologizing about?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I would rewind and play it again, but it was so long, I don't want to do that. What was he talking about there? It sounded like something personal going on between the two of them. And again, I'm not trying to make this about that, but I just thought there was a very interesting tidbit. Was Chandler cheating on his wife in the lead up to the first Charles Oliveira fight? Hope he didn't do it again on these 6 training camps for the Conor McGregor fight that never came to fruition.
But someday it'll come out. But let's just say it was the worst camp of my life.
So you're actually saying I'm sorry in that moment, because the video is from the back, but then I saw the photo and I was like, oh wow, this is the different perspective.
Yeah.
And you're thinking about non-fighting stuff in that moment too.
I thought about non-fighting stuff every single day for that entire training camp.
Wow.
I have no idea what this could be something else. Maybe it's not that. I thought that was a very interesting moment. Last 2 clips we're going to take a look at from Ariel's show before we jump over to Kevin Ioli's interview. I just thought this was kind of funny, man. This just goes to show how broken this man is. Ariel asked somebody to close a door, and apparently it's one of Chandler's guys. And he asked him, oh, who is that guy? And you're never going to believe who this guy is.
That's Connor.
Connor, what's up?
That's
you have
Connor.
a Connor too.
Yeah.
What does Connor do for you?
Everything media.
Okay.
Let me rewind that a little bit because I kind of jumped the gun a little bit. I started the clip a little bit late. Listen to this.
There, I don't know how it opened. Thank you for that. Is this your guy right here?
That's Connor.
Connor, what's up?
That's
you have
Connor.
a Connor too.
Yeah.
What does Connor do for you?
Everything media.
Okay.
Everything media.
This dude hired a guy named Connor. And he even talks about, I hired a guy named Connor so I could boss him around a little bit. You'll do what you're told. Doesn't say that part. But listen to this. I mean, I know this is partially a joke, but this is just insane. This is you can't script this type of stuff.
Is he the one doing all the Instagram stuff?
He is.
Shit, man.
Well, it's funny actually because
Upped it on the Instagram.
yeah, we go hard, man.
Yeah.
Connor gets after it. He does a hell of a job. I've got some great people around me, and he is one of them. And I like to boss around a guy named Connor.
You can't look at this shit-eating grin. You can't make this shit up. And Ariel's like cringing, and then Mike's like, "Oh, I'm just joking around."
No, I'm just joking. But that is, I always tell him that was one of the funniest. That was one of the funniest Instagram comments
That's true. He wanted to boss around a dude named Connor. Let's jump on to the last clip. Let's jump ahead to the last clip. Now, let's not jump on anything. I don't want to be Michael Chandler jumping on Connor. But look, I'm telling you, if Chandler loses to Charles Oliveira, which I believe he will, he's going to go to a dark place. This man says he's writing in his journal about Conor McGregor. This is crazy.
I have picked up that journal 5-6 times a day, every single day. I've got a UFC 303 Conor section that was.
I mean, you really can't even make this stuff up. And half of this interview, the majority of this interview is just coping nonsense, motivational speeches. Listen to this.
It's about maybe a fifth of it, and then I've just finished my almost entire journal. I got about 15 pages left of just this training camp. And most of it is gratitude. Most of it is writing to myself, reminding myself what I have done. I mean, because sometimes I've got this idea of him.
By the way, when he first said that, I'm going to pause it right there. Didn't it sound like he's talking about Conor? I've got this idea of him. But then he goes on to this whole little spiel. I'm just going to let it play for a little bit longer. I can't even. This is making my ears bleed. Listen to this.
And you put quotation marks around it, him, because I think, I'm speaking as a man to men. We're working and we're visualizing, we're thinking, and we're trying to become him. We're trying to become that guy, the best version of ourselves, whatever that best version.
I can't let, and this was the whole interview real quick. No, look, I'm not even jumping any timestamps. Watch this. I'm going to click to something. It's going to be Chandler saying some wonky shit. Watch. I'm just randomly clicking around.
I said, hey, we're going to push it to this. It's not happening until at least here, or at least here, or at least here. My 5th year, I go from walk-on, little kid from Missouri, nobody knew who I was, to a guy who's ranked top 5 in the country. Test myself and be like, let's see if I can get out of this. Let's see what happens here. So it's going to be interesting. I get this opportunity against him again to right that wrong.
All right, so that one isn't that bad. But there you go. You said it's just a lot. It was just a lot of like jargon, a lot of rhetoric. I don't even know what you want to call it. A lot of motivational self-help books just seemed like they were loaded into Michael Chandler's brain for this interview. Now let's jump over to the man, the myth, the legend, the pound for pound media journalist in the MMA sphere with one basset hound, not a German Shepherd, but a basset hound, Kevin Ioli. I actually had to leave the questions in here because the questions were perfect. These are the type of questions that I would be asking a Michael Chandler, okay? And I just love that Kevin Ioli just cut right to the point. This is towards the end of the interview, but I mean, like the questions were very blunt, made perfect sense. And this is the type of journalism we need. By the way, I'll link this interview down in the description. I encourage you to go check it out. But man, is this guy still coping? And it's sad to see. But he does lay, at the end of this interview, he lays out his plan for 2025.
To me, it looks like he's never going to fight again. Will you be okay with your career if you don't stand opposite Conor McGregor in the octagon?
Perfect question. To me, Conor looks like he's never going to fight again, Chandler. Why'd you sit around waiting for him? But let's see Chandler's answer.
Yeah, I mean, if Conor comes back, or if Conor never comes back, it was a season of my life. It was a decision I made. I hold no ill will towards him, the UFC, how it all worked out, man. Accountability is a superpower. And my superpower is how accountable I am to my own actions and my own decisions. A man must stand firmly and confidently on the decisions that he makes, even if it's the wrong decision.
In quotes, it was the wrong decision. He wasted 2 years of his career at lightweight in his late 30s waiting for a dude who's partying on yachts 24/7, doing coke, and going in the NBA Finals public restrooms.
Sometimes it works out perfectly. In this scenario, it's going to work out perfectly. I'm going to be the champion because I had that scenario happen with Conor. I do believe he comes back. If he does come back, the road goes straight through Nashville, Tennessee, and a guy named Michael Chandler.
Look at that Kevin Ioli smirk. He ain't coming back, brother. He's not coming back. Imagine being Chandler looking dead into the camera. I believe he's coming back. Now, there's a chance that Conor does come back. If he does come back, it's got to be in the next 6 months because Conor's contract is running out. I do believe there's a sunset clause. We don't have confirmation. And therefore, if Conor doesn't fight, he gets to leave the UFC, I believe, in late 2025, early 2026. We don't have any official dates. That's pure speculation on my part. So, like, the UFC and Conor, you know what I mean? Like, if Conor's going to fight out his deal anyway, rather than have him wait out his deal on the sidelines, the UFC would rather rush Conor fights and just do whatever it takes to get him in there and get those pay-per-view buys before he leaves, rather than just have him wait it out and leave, similar to Francis Ngannou, especially when Conor has 2 fights left on his deal. But let's carry on.
And we have to finish that rivalry. We have to finish Tough 31. And going back,
I know he said this on Ariel's show too, but let me just ask you guys, is there anyone that's like dying to see Tough 31 or 21 or whatever the hell he said? Or is anyone dying? Like, yeah, man, I'm really bummed out. I watched, Tough 31 and I just feel unsatisfied. We didn't get to complete it, even though, when did that end? August of 2023, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it was the O'Malley Aljo card was the finals. Is there anyone out there? If McGregor Chandler finally does get booked in 2025, are you going to rewatch the season just so you can get caught up to date? I'm curious.
back to Madison Square Garden, one thing, I have never fought in Las Vegas. I have fought now six. This will be my seventh opportunity. One was a backup for the lightweight title in Abu Dhabi. This will be my seventh opportunity for the UFC, and I have never done it in Vegas. So at some point, I got to fight in Vegas, man. I got to feel
Viva Las Vegas.
I got to feel a rush of the UFC home team, if you will, right? The home base of the UFC. So maybe it'll all come to fruition. Chandler versus McGregor in Vegas at some point in 2025, whether it's before I fight for the title, after I fight for the title, whenever it is, it's going to happen, I believe.
It's going to happen. He's going to fight Conor McGregor. We'll see. I will never, I'm telling you right now, I don't care if they book it again. I don't care what. I will not believe it until they're inside the cage. And then once they're inside the cage, I'm live streaming Bruce Buffer's announcing them. I'm going to look like Tim Welsh seeing a double leg takedown. I'm going to be like, I'm not going to believe it. I'm not going to believe it. Now, last two clips I want to check out from this interview. It actually carries on. I'm just going to keep playing. I'm a continuation of where we're at. Next question from Kevin Ioli is absolutely perfect. Something that I've been hammering home for 2 years. Hey, Chandler, you know, Conor hasn't won a fight in X amount of years. He's on a losing streak. He's coming off a catastrophic injury. Now, Kevin Ioli doesn't say all this, but what does a win over him even mean anymore? And he tries to hype up Conor. He kind of says, oh, well, you know, maybe the fans don't think it's much, but, you know, Conor believes in himself. I could not believe this answer when I first heard it. Essentially, Chandler says, oh, yeah, I know, but Conor believes in himself. That's a dangerous man.
Just so I can't end with that, just I have to ask you, will a win over McGregor be the same as it would have been 3 years ago, right? Like given what's going on with him, and he hasn't really been that successful in his most recent fights, and of course he's been inactive. Will a win over Conor McGregor in your mind still be the same as beating some of these other guys that you fought?
Man, I've fought nothing but the toughest dudes in the entire division. You know, you go back to the lightweight rankings of when I signed September of 2020.
So he fought the toughest guys in the lightweight division as of 2020. Dude, Chandler has like one of the worst UFC like resumes right now. I know he fought some good guys, but he lost to all of them basically. Lost to Gaethje, lost to Poirier. He beat Dan Hooker, which is aged decently now that Dan Hooker's kind of had a resurgence, but the win over Tony Ferguson ain't aging that well, and he was losing the first round.
When you talk about, and you kick Khabib out of there because Khabib retired, but every single other guy, including Conor McGregor, was ranked inside of the top 5. And I fought every single one of those guys and either beat them.
Wait a second. Did this dude just remind us that Conor was ranked in the top 5 back in 2020?
Or been in a hell of a fight. To answer your question, I don't think that's the public sentiment. I don't think people see Conor as guys like a Charles Oliveira, a Poirier, a Gaethje, an Arman.
Facts. That is true. I agree 100% with Chandler here, but listen to what he goes on to say.
But Conor McGregor is the biggest star in the sport, the biggest star power in the sport. He must be respected for what he has done and who he is when he actually competes. Conor at the club and Conor at bare knuckle and Conor on his yacht, that's one thing. But he does believe in himself, and self-belief is the most important thing that us fighters can have inside of the octagon. So when he steps into the octagon, whether you love him or hate him or believe in him or don't believe in him or think he's washed up or think he's going to be champion, Conor McGregor believes in himself, and he's a scary individual. So we'll see. If that fight ever happens, I will prepare for it like I'm preparing for the #1 guy in the world, as I always have.
Okay, there you go. So Conor believes in himself. He's a dangerous man. It doesn't matter. He's partying 24/7. I really, sorry, I'm coughing a little bit while I'm laughing. I can't believe Chandler. Yeah, he's a believes in himself. Doesn't matter. You have to respect him. No, you don't have to respect him. He seems like a total piece of shit. I don't know why Conor doesn't get more hate, to be quite honest. Next clip we're going to jump ahead to. And last clip we're going to jump ahead to. We're going to see Michael Chandler's kind of roadmap for the future of his career. And it just goes to show that he's really devastated that he sat out and wasted those 2 years of his career. But then I'm going to use this to break down how Chandler saves his career. I'm going to explain to you, and I think he actually has it backwards here, but I'm going to play it.
Kevin, let me give you my road real quick, all right? I've already got it mapped out. Charles Oliveira, November 16th. I beat him. I become the #1 contender. I'm sitting cage side watching Islam and Arman the first month or so of 2025.
Right.
Then we go into Ramadan. I believe Islam wins. Ramadan means Islam can't be in training camp February, March. Won't be able to fight till at least June or July. If Conor is able to come back, I can fight Conor in March. Then I can fight Islam in June or July, beat him. By that time, same night, Max Holloway, who has moved up to lightweight, fights a top 5 guy, becomes the #1 contender. Chandler versus Max Holloway at the end of 2025. I put my UFC lightweight belt on the line. He puts his BMF belt on the line.
So there you go. He's going to beat Oliveira, fight McGregor, beat Islam, and then defend against Max Holloway to win the BMF, apparently. I think he's got this a little bit twisted. One, I mean, that'd be a massive accomplishment, and that would save his career. But here's what I think he needs to do. If he beats Oliveira, he needs to wait for the title shot. Fuck Conor. Don't wait for Conor. Don't sit around begging for Conor. Don't risk your title shot against Conor. And I would actually hate this. I would absolutely hate what I'm about to say. But if he fights Islam, if Islam's still the champion, if he beats Arman, and he beats Islam, and I'm not saying I hate that. I mean, that'd be crazy. But what he needs to do is win the lightweight title and then try to defend against Conor McGregor. I don't know if the UFC is going to want to do that because of contract situations. But the reason I say that, and the reason I said he's wasted his time waiting for Conor, is because he doesn't get pay-per-view points. So pay-per-view points, for those of you who don't know, I'm going to explain it because every time people ask me, it's written into certain fighters' contracts, mainly champions, but some other bigger draws. You get X amount of money on top of your regular purse per pay-per-view sold. So I'm just going to make up random numbers here. For every pay-per-view over 500,000, you get $2.50. For every pay-per-view sold over 750,000, that'll jump up to $3.50. Something along those lines. Every pay-per-view over $1 million you get $5 per pay-per-view. Something along those lines. I'm making up hypothetical numbers there, but you only get pay-per-view points if you're a massive draw like Conor McGregor or you're a champion. Guess what? If Chandler wins the belt, he's getting pay-per-view points. That's why Red Panty Night was created. And I said Chandler's not getting a Red Panty Night because he's not getting pay-per-view points. If he has a title, he's getting pay-per-view points. If he's defending against Conor, which I would absolutely hate because Conor in no realm deserves a title shot, then he would get pay-per-view points in Conor McGregor's return fight. It would have been well worth it because that pay-per-view is going to do mega numbers. Conor's return, that may be Conor's last big pay-per-view. I think that's the way he saves his career. And then if he starts his Conor, then he can look at maybe a Max Holloway fight. Because Max Holloway, if he wins a fight in the top 5, he will be a big drawing power, and he'll still be the BMF, even though he's not really, because he turned down Ilia Toporia's offer to stand and bang in the first round of their fight at UFC 308. But yeah, Chandler's mentally broken. He's still insisting the Conor fight's going to happen. I'm happy that he's kind of moved on a little bit and he's taken a little bit of accountability, but I still don't like how he's talking out of both sides of his mouth. Hopefully we get a great fight at UFC 309 in the co-main event. I've already broken down that entire card in terms of my predictions. If you care to go check that out, I'll link it down in the description as well as the end cards. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.